Ritual, as opposed to routines, which are the repeated patterns of our lives, as opposed to tradition, which are the things we do that symbolize how we relate to one another. Rituals are the things we do to touch and live from our very core. Religious ritual creates a space for the sacred or the holy to be present, for something to happen. It may or may not happen, but ritual is constructed for that possibility. It may be repetitive, like communion is in most of the mainline Protestant churches, or it may be constructed for one use, as in a new naming ceremony for a person claiming their gender. It is often conducted in the midst of community. It is what groups of people do to bind themselves to one another. Meg Cox, who is a UU, has written a book for children and families about how to create rituals, and she says of ritual, ritual is human life in capital letters. It needs to be punctuated, capitalized, elevated. Many times, rituals mark rites of passage or transformation. They can symbolize the separation or letting go of one state or status, an entry into something new or differentiated from the past. The Reverend Aaron McEmrys says that liturgical ritual helps us to reset ourselves individually and collectively. As my colleague, the Reverend John Luopa, has written, we human beings have certain kinds of experiences, and sometimes they are experiences of wonder or awe, or an encounter that we may not understand, or one that we have a sense that is with something larger than ourselves, something that we might call mystery or the sacred. And I use that word sacred differently than the word holy. Traditionally, the word holy has meant that God has been present, and the word sacred means something happened here. Something happened here. It is our response to that experience of something happening here that ends up often forming religion and spirituality. Our worship, our religious impulse, our spiritual longings are tied to trying to make meaning of our experiences of something happened. In other words, theology is, as John says, a reflective practice, reflecting on an experience of the ultimate, however you defined it. Two things that I believe about ritual. As Elizabeth Gilbert said, if we don't have them, we'll make them up. And secondly, they can have an impact. A friend of mine told the story of teens who were involved in gangs, and they were involved at a time when many teens, maybe from our own culture, were involved in the rite of confirmation, which in the Christian church is usually a year-long study, resulting in usually 14, 15-year-olds saying for themselves the words that were said at their baptism. It's an entry into the Christian church. But the gang members had a different ritual. It was also entry into community, but it was done so by beating. They were beaten into the gang. Both rituals, confirmation and beatings, are equally rituals of entry into a community. And here's what I say about ritual. It's the same thing I say to people who are going to walk a labyrinth. Expect nothing. Be open to whatever may happen, and take from it what you will. Over the years in Unitarian Universalism, I have found myself creating rituals to help congregations make their way through things that come our way, like massive school shootings, like the fact that we are a nation at war and no one acknowledges it, like having an entire congregation lay hands on teens moving into young adulthood, rituals for the dissolution of a marriage but the maintaining of family, of ways of saying goodbye to clergy and ways of welcoming them, or the burning bowl ceremony with the letting go of what we need to let go of through fire, resetting ourselves through hand washing, the self-anointing and blessing, and the lighting of candles to carry our intentions for the year. Ritual is one way to try and make meaning when meaning cannot be found. Ritual marks the seasons of our lives. It is both an individual and communal response to this gift, this precious gift of life. It can contain numerous elements or just one. Ritual isn't magic, but it locates the spirit and the soul. It provides the context of our lives.